Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. In this episode, we are chasing big bream on the Hawkesbury River, covering the Daiwa BREAM series, which was run and won on the 3rd and 4th of May in 2025. The round sponsor for this one was Bait Junkie, and it was another cracking event with some interesting stories, fast boats, lots of petrol used, and all things bream. All right, let's roll the intros, and then we'll get straight into the episode. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here's your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
All right. So as this one comes to air in the collective, we are halfway through our crab and mussel challenge. So this is where we dive in and focus on these sorts of lures as a group, come together, share some knowledge, have some laughs and catch some big bream. And this one has been exceptional. Anyway, if that's something you're interested in, you're going to have to sign up to the collective. You can do that at breamfishingproject.supercast.com. The links are in most of the podcast descriptions. You can go there. And tomorrow night, after this comes out, the Wednesday night, as it's planned, we will have our mid-session catch-up via Zoom. So if you want to be part of that, you're going to have to sign up pretty quick so I can make sure you get the links. All right. This is a big episode, so I'm going to keep it to a minimum. We're going to get into all the stats for this and move straight into the angler interviews. We've got 6 interviews. How cool is that? All right. So on the Saturday, we had 27 in the fish activity wheel, with a minor bite period at 11:25 through to 12:55 p.m. Low tide was at 7:04 a.m. at 0.2. High tide was at 1:07 p.m. at 1.09. And on the Sunday, lower in the fish activity wheel, which was interesting when you listen to the angler reports, except for Pete Breukel, 14 in the fish activity wheel. The minor bite period was 12:07 p.m. through to 1:37 p.m. Low tide was 8:07 at 0.23, running up to a high tide at 2:15 at 1.1 meters. All right, here we go with the non-boaters. All right, so here we have it. 3rd place in the non-boaters. Our first angler, he dropped 3 fish for 2.775 on the Saturday. Backed it up on the Sunday with 3 fish for 1.325, giving him a total of 6 fish for 4.1 kilos even. I have Aaron Booby. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Mate, fantastic. Mate, nice little result there. Now, I don't know you. Like, how long have you been fishing the ABTs?
Oh, I actually fished my first one in around 2009 or something at Bass Comp years ago.
Yeah.
And then I've only ever fished this is my second bream. So I fished the Hawkesbury 2 years ago.
Okay. First of all, if that's only your third, to get on the podium is pretty good going. And what's your pattern there? Like, do you just like the Hawkesbury? Is it just time of year? Or?
Yeah, I like the Hawkesbury. I've done a lot of fishing up Brower and that sort of way. Being originally from Bathurst, it was our closest saltwater fishing. So spent a bit of time there. So I like the Hawkesbury and, yeah, I don't know, just always settled on it. So.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Well, fair enough. All right. For pre-fish day, did you get a chance to get out with anyone, have a look around?
No, I spent my time sitting in traffic on that freeway after the metal spill. So.
Oh, lovely. You're the first person I've spoken to that got caught in that.
Yeah, so it took me about 7 hours to get to Sydney from Old Bar. So.
Oh, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
All right. So for anyone that doesn't know, so it must have been the Friday, they had a truck drop, 30 Ks of metal shards?
Yeah.
And just flattened everyone's tyres.
Yeah.
And what happened with you?
Yeah, just sent me on a detour around. Oh, I can't remember the detour. Anyway, it was a long detour.
Okay, but you didn't actually end up with flat tyres.
No, I left later in the day, so it was all right.
Ouch. So you missed your pre-fish. All right. For the Saturday, who'd you get paired up with?
Day one, I had Peter Breukel.
Okay. Tell us how your day went. Now, I know Peter Brent pretty fast. How was it riding around on his boat?
Yeah, it was a pretty eventful ride down there. It was nice and fast, but yeah, we got down to Spencer pretty quick.
Yeah. All right. How was it for you? Like, you ended up with a pretty decent bag. How'd you go about putting them in the well?
Yeah, so all my fish come on the UV crab day one. And we're fishing a wall sort of up towards Spencer. Because we're sort of that bottom of the run out, the fish were actually sitting a fair way off the wall.
Yeah.
So we sort of found out pretty early on to drag them out in that deeper water, and you're pretty much just down with the current.
Okay. Now, how was it for you on the back of the boat? How'd that sort of look? Were you able to get casting angles, or what was it like?
Yeah, so I sort of had to adapt a bit because obviously I didn't want to cast forward or anything. So I'd cast straight at the bank, drag it so there was no current up tight, and I'd drag it gently back into the current, and then I'd nearly free spool it and let it run down with the water. So just so I could get that time, because otherwise without casting forward, it makes it a bit hard. So
yeah, okay. Yes.
Backwards and catch my fish at the back of the boat, kind of.
Yeah, so you would have been pulling them back against the current when you hooked them?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. That was one of the things that was in my mind as soon as you said that. How are you going to manage that position on the boat? How was it? Like, did you get a bunch of fish?
I think I'd probably caught 6 legals, something like that, but I would have had my bag by 9:30 probably, like the keepers I kept. So
yeah.
And once that run stopped, it pretty much shut down.
Okay. And if you're fishing, so straight at the bank, kind of free spooling it, letting it go out, were you seeing bites or were you just all of a sudden feeling fish on?
No. So once you got down to where they were, I think it was in about 8 metres. It was pretty deep. Boy.
Yeah.
And you just sort of feel that rattle. They wouldn't hook up straight away. So some of them you had to play a fair while and keep free spooling it back to them, and that eventually, load up. And
Yeah, okay. And you had the cranker on. Was it just the heavy one straight out of the box?
Yeah, just heavy UV, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And in terms of lines and leaders, what were you running for the day?
So I actually had my, sort of what I call my heavy rack rods. So it's a brawler, a Miller rod brawler with, I think I had a 3,000 frames or Daiwa frames on it with 10-pound J-braid, and I think I had 8-pound leader.
Okay. Yeah, so pretty heavy. All right. And so you got 6 legals for the day. You got some early. Tell us about your big fish.
So my big fish went 36 fork around that. I think it was actually my 3rd fish of the day. And it pretty much, come from out the back of the boat, like I was explaining before.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So you ended up with, you got 2.775, you got a 36 forker, which would have been, unless it was really fat, would have been around about a kilo, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think I went 1.11 or something like that.
1.1, okay. With your other fish, do you actually lose any other fish?
Nothing that mattered, I don't think. Just small. A bit hard to tell down that deep with the crabs, but
yeah.
No, I think my first fish of the day was a 35 fork, and then I think my second might have been I think it was 32 and a half or something like that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so I had a pretty good start.
Wow, okay. You had a great start, and Peter obviously ultimately ended up winning the comp, but he had his 5 fish for 3.4 and your 3 fish for 2.7. So you got the pick out of the bunch there.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing. I think I just a bit of luck involved, but yeah, I don't know. It took a while to sort of work out how to catch them because we weren't getting them shallow, but once we work out that deeper sort of pattern.
Yeah. To me, it feels like the whole drifting it down with the current was obviously the key. I assume the line would have had some sort of belly in it as well.
Yeah, it's not a comfortable way to fish. I don't enjoy it so much. Yeah. You got to do it, I guess.
You got to do what you got to do. All right. So did you get all your fish up top there, or did you get any down the bottom at the end of the day?
No, that was it. It's pretty much that flow style. I didn't catch a few. I maybe caught undersized bream, but yeah, I think.
All right, very cool. You ended up with 2.775. Where'd that have you overnight? You in first?
Second. Yeah.
Second. Fair enough. All right, tell us about Sunday. Who did you get paired up with, and how'd that go?
Yeah, so I had Christian Wardini on the Sunday, which I was pretty excited for because he was sitting in about 5th place, so we had a good day the day before. And yeah, so we were doing a similar thing. So we were heading up that the river and fishing the deep rock walls. So it's pretty happy.
And so how did you sort of target it, the same sort of setup?
Yeah, I was trying to sort of mimic what I did day one. It's just we just weren't on the fish sort of straight away. So I had to work from a lot harder. And yeah, I didn't have a fish for a while on day 2. So
yeah, so it was the same setup. You're still sitting on the back of the boat. That makes it tough. How many fish you end up getting for the day?
I think I caught four legals, only one upgrade.
Okay.
Only small, so.
Yeah. But still, you'd have been happy to see that third one in the boat.
Yeah, that's right. That was sort of the goal from the start, to get a bag both days. So I was pretty happy with it.
100%. Throughout the 2 days, did you get all your fish on the UV crab, I think you said?
Yeah, I caught 2 of those fish, and then I got actually an upgrade on a deep spike in the black.
Okay.
Yeah, so like we did a lot more jumping around on day 2.
Yeah.
Sort of Brower and Dangar Island sort of areas.
Okay. And was that sort of just cranking edges, like casting in tight?
Yeah, we were actually it was cranking outside of a jetty.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Once again.
Crab, and I thought I'd just try something a bit different. And
there you go. So for the Sunday, did you drop any fish? Anything that worried you?
No.
Fair enough. Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, look, you ended up dropping 1.325, which put you in third place. What did you end up taking home for third place?
Luckily, I got the cranker crab pack. So
nice.
Crabs over the weekend. So
what you getting that? A bunch of crabs and then some cranks and
a couple of the vibes. So yeah, it'd be pretty handy.
Perfect. All right. And a third place badge, I take it?
Yeah, that's the main thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, mate. Last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Obviously, Steve and Nicole for running a great column. I really enjoyed myself, and both my boaters, they were great blokes, easy to fish with and very accommodating. And yeah, I guess I got to thank the partner at home, let me go fishing. So.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to say, you can give her a couple of crabs.
Yeah.
All right, mate. That is brilliant, mate. Congratulations on third place. And, mate, hopefully we get to have a chance to have a talk to you before the end of the season. You're going to have another fish?
Yeah, so because I'm up at Old Bar, so I got the Foster and the Taree round. So nice.
Mate.
It'd be good.
Yeah, you'll be a chance. All right, mate. That's terrific. Look, thanks for that. Yeah, well, hopefully we talk to you again next time.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, mate. All right. So next up in second place in the non-boated division, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 2.325, backing it up on the Sunday with 3 fish for 1.89, which gave him a total of 4.215. With me, I have Aaron Bonser. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, DT. Yeah, really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you coming on, mate. Mate, we spoke before we hit record. You got a nice draw with Mario and Scott Wilson.
Yeah, 2 awesome anglers. I knew of them before we went into the round, but get to know them was pretty cool.
Yeah, to spend a day with those guys is awesome. Like, getting a good draw is part of this, and fortunately for you, got 2 great guys.
Yeah, it was the key to success, that's for sure.
Very good. And we'll come back to that at the end. Or maybe as we go through the interview, tell us if there's anything that you learnt from the guys. So I'll let that see how that plays out, because you got a couple of champion anglers.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So leading into the competition, did you get a chance to have a pre-fish on the Friday?
Yeah, I did actually. I got out with Aaron Tracy. I met Aaron up at the Gold Coast at an ABT round, and we stayed in contact. And yeah, we went out for a few hours on the Friday and got a few fish, so that was good.
Oh, very good. Very good. And did you find any patterns on that Friday?
Nah, it was a bit of a struggle. The Mustang survival rain suit was definitely on with the rain. But yeah, no real patterns. So,
all right. Let's roll into Saturday. I think you said you headed off with Mario first up. Tell us how that went.
Yeah, jumped in with Mario. Yeah, it was pretty cool. We went up into Cowan, fishing the edges, rock edges, and some points. Yeah, we sort of found that the fish were out a bit deeper and not holding tight to the structure and to the rock wall. So, yeah, we pretty much plugged away there all day. What we did find, I fished the bass rounds for the Hunter and the Hawkesbury.
Okay.
And just the week before, and we found that if you cut the baits down and made the soft plastics a little bit smaller profile, the fish were biting them a bit easier.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the technique that I went with. So,
okay. So what were you throwing?
I was throwing the Daiwa flick. I think it's 2.95 flick, but I cut about 8 to 10 mil off the front of it, so the eyes of the flick.
Yeah.
And I was throwing that in blood, worm, UV.
Okay, so that became a much shorter bait, and it's already a thin, slim profile, so it would have got down there quick.
Yeah, I was throwing a 1/12. It was 1/12, and we're probably in about 25 foot of water, fishing the edge down to about 25 foot.
Okay.
And just letting it sink and letting the current and the flow off the rocks just flutter down. And the longer it sat, that's when we found the bites were on the first or second wind or movement.
Right. And were you, like with Mario, were you fishing from the back of the boat, sort of casting diagonal to the shore?
Yeah, we're sort of leapfrogging there for a little bit, depending on how the boat was positioned, obviously.
Yeah.
Mario was throwing some crabs and some muss, and a few other things. We sort of changed it up until we found a bit of a pattern.
Mm.
But yeah, once we had our bag, I was sort of up the front with him. But
yeah, okay. How'd you go getting your bag? Did you get some early?
I think we had our bag by about 20 past 10.
Okay. So
on the first day. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. A bit of a slow start. I was dreading the big donut.
Yeah.
Which I've done before in the Hawkesbury.
Yep.
But I think we just had to slow it down a little bit, just be patient, wait for that tide to turn, wait for the water to start coming back up on their edges, and then we started getting some bites. So.
Yeah, right. So you got your bag. How about upgrades throughout the day?
I think we had about 2 upgrades. I had that kicker fish on day 1, so that was on that Daiwa flick. It went 1.275 kilo.
Okay, run us through that. Tell us about that fish.
Yeah, so that fish was on a rocky point, same as what I just spoke about. So cast up into the edge, just let it come down into that deeper water and just be really patient with it. And he's just picked it up. Yeah, at first I thought it was a big trevally and I was calling it for everything but a bream. But once it come out of the rocks and the structure and was in open water, it started doing a bit more bream things. So Mario's saying, it's a bream. I'm like, okay, just be nice and steady. And I was only running 6 pound line, 6 pound leader, and it come out in open water. And yeah, we net it. We're high-fiving and cuddling each other. It was awesome.
It sounds lovely.
Yeah, it was a bit romantic.
Very good. Okay. So where was that in the day? Was that like first upgrade or where was it?
Nah, that was my third fish. So I had a little one. I had 2 little ones and then that kicker. And then I upgraded to a nicer fish later on in the day on a cranker crab. I think it was about a 34, 35 forker. So I had 128, one nice one, and then the kicker.
Wow. So good bag.
Yeah.
How do you think it compared? Like obviously Mario, you said he was throwing crabs and mussels and that's what I would have expected. How'd the plastic go against that?
Yeah. Mario's saying, tying a crab. And I said, oh, just wait until you get a pattern first. Just let him get his fish. And I sort of went with my own thing at the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just alternated between the plastics. I threw on some grubs and was throwing some eco gear, bream prawns. I was throwing, I just Z-Man grubs. I was cutting them all down to that smaller profile that I spoke about.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big fish come on the Daiwa flick, and yeah, the other ones were on the crabs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So you ended up with, what we say, 2.775. Is that right? That's not right.
2.325.
2.325. Where'd that put you overnight?
I was in 6th for day 1.
Yep.
So I was pretty happy with that, with previous years of the dreaded donut and smaller bags that I've caught in the Hawkesbury.
Yeah, exactly. And paired up with Scotty Wilson the next day, you'd be cheering about that.
Yeah, he's a legend. I knew of Scotty, but I hadn't fished with him before. Yeah, he's awesome.
All right, let's roll into the Sunday. Tell us how you went, how it started, and what the plan was.
Yeah, so jumped in with Scotty. We took off down up the river. We went pretty much up to the boundary of up to Spencer Way, up where obviously it was one with Peter Breukel and Mark Healey was up there and a few others. So yeah, we dashed up there. The tide was running out fairly hard, and I hadn't really fished that sort of conditions before for bream. this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Scotty said, this is what you got to do. So he just got on the sounder, found those fish holding behind those rocks in that deeper water with that high flow.
Yeah.
And we'll just throw in crabs. Yeah, probably every second cast we're getting snagged up on a rock, and then you just lift it up and pop it over the rock, and we found that eventually the fish would come out from behind the rock and just nail the crab as it comes past. So it's pretty cool to learn. You spoke about the things I learnt on the water, and yeah, Scotty definitely showed me that.
Yeah. How did you go then? Once again, would you end up on the front deck with him, or were you still in it from the back?
No, I was still on the back. Gave Scotty his room why he didn't have his bag. But yeah, we were leapfrogging. So he'd put in a cast, I'll let him come down, and then I'd go over the top of him.
Yeah, right.
And then, we sort of spoke about that at the start. What do you want me to do? How do you want me to fish?
Yeah.
That's how we went about it while that tide was running out pretty hard.
Yeah, right. Is that the first time you fished in that way?
Yeah, definitely. If it was me, I wouldn't even go near it. I'd be up in an eddy somewhere out of the current, fishing a point. You can see it on live that the fish, there could be like 10 bream sitting behind the rock there, and you see them plain as day. So, yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, okay. That is very cool. So, look, you ended up with a pretty decent bag. How did your fish come? They come early or late, or how'd that look?
So, day 2 fish, same. I was dreading the donut again. About 8:30, I didn't have a fish. Scotty had 3 in the well. And then we did a move back down the river a little bit to another spot of his. And I got my first 3 in the matter of 4 or 5 casts.
Wow.
So, yeah, by 9:30, I think I had a bag. Scotty had a bag. And then it was just upgrade time from there.
Nice. And how were the fish biting? Was it like a long time between the bites, or how'd they take the lures, I guess?
No, they come in waves. We called it a bit of a flurry. Like by the time we had 5 or 6 fish in the boat, and then we're like, oh, that was a bit of a flurry.
Mm.
And then it'd go quiet for a bit, and then we'd have a bit more of a flurry, whether that's got to do with the tide or how they're feeding or we're just putting them in the right spot at the same time. I'm not too sure, but yeah, we just had little flurries throughout the day.
Okay. And on the Sunday, did you persist with your sort of 6 pound and 6 pound combo?
Yeah, Scotty said we've got to upgrade, go a bit heavier, which we did, and we tried a bit lighter, and we found that the lighter leader on those rocks, with the crab hopping over the rocks, it'd get frayed really easy.
Yeah.
So constantly retying the leader just to make sure, even if it was like a little tiny nick in it, we just get rid of it. It wasn't worth dropping those good fish.
Definitely.
Yeah, we just constantly just retied all day.
Yeah, okay.
And then later on in the day, we both had half decent bags, and we thought, righto, let's get out of here. The tide slackened out. It was on the change of a tide, the bite stopped.
Yeah, okay.
And then we shot back downriver, and we got into some oyster leases and around the racks between Breukel and Juno Point.
Oh, yeah.
And got towed up in there like you wouldn't believe. I think Scotty upgraded once or twice in there, and then there was big fish in there everywhere.
Yeah, right.
We went up to 15 pound, 12 pound, 15 pound lock drag, and we literally saw fish everywhere, and we just got towed up in there for about an hour and a half at the end of the session.
Right.
That was pretty cool.
That was very cool. But I take it you didn't put any ones in the well there.
No, I didn't. Probably looking back now, I probably lost the winning fish probably about 5 times in there.
Yeah, wow.
But there were some big ones in there, and we could see them feeding up on top of the racks. Underneath the racks, they were everywhere in there.
Yeah, right. It's no good losing fish, but it's kind of fun, at least when you're hooking big ones. Yeah.
I thought once we left upriver, I thought, I've got a half-decent bag. There was some big fish caught on day 1. Thought I'll probably be mid, maybe 15th, 16th, might put me around there.
Yeah, right.
And then, we were in the later flight, that 2:30 flight, and we come in, and I said to Scotty, I might have a bit of a chance here. I'm pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, knowing now, probably would have fished a little bit different in the racks.
Tried harder to land those fish that were toweling you up.
I wasn't too concerned. I'm like, I've had a good weekend. It's probably my best finish in the Hawkesbury. And I was pretty content before we went rack fishing.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, you needed a good upgrade. You needed a big upgrade, or maybe two to get there, but it's still possible.
Yeah.
All right. I reckon that's a pretty cool story. Sorry, I didn't think to ask. In the racks, what were you throwing in there?
Well, crankbaits in there, just those shallow diving crankbaits, just get them down level or just under where the rack was sitting in the water, and then just bringing them past each of the racks, even on the posts in the middle of nowhere. There was fish holding on the posts. And
right, okay.
Yeah. On top there was a few fish sitting on top feeding. We put the long cast in on the top of the rack and lock drag, and they were even turning around and whacking the plastics unweighted on the top, and we still couldn't get them out of there.
Wow, that sounds very cool. Like a good way to end the day, even though you didn't catch any, so to speak.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. That was enough to bring you back in second place. What did you end up taking home for that?
I got a Daiwa pack with some crankbaits. I think it's about $500 worth.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool. Thanks to Daiwa, obviously, for supporting the series and that round. It's awesome. What they do for the non-boater prize packs is next level. So
yeah,
it definitely brings people into the sport at a beginner level and gets them really keen.
Yeah. And good that you won that, in part using their lure, which is very cool.
Yeah, the Daiwa fleet. Yeah, it's sponsor karma, Morgo says. So
yeah,
try and tie on the sponsor lure at each tournament and just see if that sponsor karma is real. And it's real. I've won of the non-boater bass events at Somerset, and it was a Rapala round, and I tied on Rapala all weekend, and I got the win. So
nice.
I'm running with sponsor karma. It's a thing.
Very good. We'll have to see. We spoke before we hit record. You're going to give the Barra a bit of a go next year or late this year.
Yeah, I've put the order in for the boat, so the boat's due end of August. And I've done the move back up to Mackay now, so I'll be getting into the Barra. I'll have to change all my gear and learn some new techniques, but I'm really keen to get into that sort of fishing as well. But I'm always going to love doing the bass and bream tournaments. So
definitely. All right, very cool. All right, mate. Well, look, I think that covers everything. So last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you would give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, I'll shout out my old man. He lives down in Sydney. He spent 2 weeks with me on the road. We went to the ABT Bass at Maitland, at the ABT at the Hawkesbury at Dargle. And then he made the trek out to Narrabeen, and we stayed there and come out to Pittwater. He helped Nicole and Morgo set up and pack up and every day, and gave them a hand for 2 weeks. So, shout out to the old boy. He loves being amongst it. He's a bit of a character, but he loves it.
Oh, very good, mate. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. Just obviously Morgo and Nicole for running the ABT tournaments. Yeah. Like I said before, it's one of those things that they do it so well, and then they bring the people into the sport from that non-boater level. And you wouldn't be able to do a competition like that if you don't bring those sorts of people in. So thanks to them. And obviously the sponsors, obviously Daiwa for that, sponsoring the ABT tournament series, and Bait Junkie for that round sponsor. So
perfect. All right. Have you got, just before we head off, are you doing any more Bream rounds this year?
I'm not too sure yet. Obviously up in Mackay now, so it's a fair hike. I'll just have to work out with work and family life if I can make it down. I'd love to do a couple more of those, especially the Tweed, something a bit closer. But I've sold the Hobie now, so now I'm getting the boat, so I'm missing out on all the Hobie rounds, but we'll see.
Fair. Oh, mate, in my mind, I'm thinking if you could win a Bream non-boater and then go up and win some some barrel ones, how good would that be?
That'd be awesome. All three, that's the dream.
There you go. You get the trifecta.
That's it.
All right, mate. That's brilliant. Look, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we get to talk to you again soon.
Nah, thanks, Deethy. Thanks for having me on.
coming in first place in the non-boaters, we have an angler dropping 2 fish for 2.015 on the Saturday, backing it up on the Sunday with 2 fish for 2.950, which gave him his 6 fish for 4.965, which was a comprehensive win. I'd like to welcome to the Bream Fishing Project, Rodney O'Sullivan. Welcome to the show, mate.
G'day, how you going?
Yeah, mate. So a nice little win there. You'd be cheering about that. You, like I said in the intro, a little comprehensive win.
Yeah. It's first time back as a non-boater for a couple of years. So, yeah, with a 3-bag limit, not sure how it went, but yeah, it landed okay for me. So
Absolutely. And a big bag on day 2, which obviously helps.
Yeah, always.
All right. Leading into the competition, did you get down there and have a pre-fish before the comp?
No, I actually didn't. I let all the guys were travelling with that go down, and I actually got caught in the traffic with the M1 highway. So it took me 6 hours to get down there.
Ouch.
Yeah, detoured through, and I didn't get down to the afternoon. So, yeah, all the boys were back already waiting for me. So,
fair enough. You didn't end up with a flat tire. You went round it.
Yeah, no flat tires. So.
Very good. All right. Well, tell us, who'd you go out with on day 1, and tell us a little bit about how your day started.
Yeah, my day actually started quite slow. I was with Christian Wardini, a young fella that's doing really well this year and has been for the last couple of years. And we went up river, up past the highway bridges, and we fished up there, and it was greenish brackish water. And I hadn't really spent much time up there. Went up there a long time ago with Ross Canizaro, but this time we went up and we're fishing the water, and I was fishing olive crabs, so was he, and we're just letting them come down and hitting the bottom, and they were sitting right on the bottom. Christian had his bag really early. It wasn't a huge bag at the time, but it was a bag, and he had his bag early, and I didn't have a fish until we moved at 11 o'clock. So we moved and went back past the highway bridges and started fishing rock walls, and that's when I got a 37 fork as my first fish. Which was, and I thought, 3 fish limit. Yeah, okay, I'm in the chance here.
Yeah,
so,
that's like 3 small fish right there.
Yeah, that's right. So 37 fork straight away, and we fished this edge, and Tristan picked up a couple of big ones as well, and upgraded his bag, and I kept fishing along, and it probably took me an hour, and I got another 2 fish, and I think it was 27 and 29 fork, and basically I only got 4 fish for the day on day 1, but still come in with 2.15 kilos. So
yeah, so look, still a decent bag. Did you predominantly fish crabs for the day? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, so I fished crabs, got my fish on crabs. We did go into cow end for a bit, and I changed up to bream prawns on a 32-pound hook. It was really, the fish were there, but they went biting. And then when we started catching fish, they were all small. So it was a bit of a slow slog. Basically, from probably 12 o'clock, we didn't get a fish after that. So
yeah, okay. But luckily, your first fish being such a big fish, that anchored the bag. And I think we said before we hit record overnight with your 2.015, I think it was, you're in 10th place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 10th place, 800 grams off the lead. Yeah, so it was a big feat to catch it. So, yeah.
100%. I was going to say in 10th place, you're probably aiming for top 3 if you could possibly get there, but obviously went one better than that. Tell us about the Sunday. Who'd you jump on the boat with, and tell us about your day, because you had a pretty good bag.
Yeah, Pete Breukel was my day 2 boater, and great guy. We'd fished alongside each other in boats in previous comps, and hadn't had a great deal of talking and getting to know each other because, we're sort of always in separate boats. But it was good to be paired with him, and we had an awesome day. Like, we were just laughing and having a great time, right through the day, and got to know each other pretty well. Had me 3 fish. Pete had his fish early, and then I had me 3 fish by 9 a.m. as well. I think the first one was a 34 fork, which was
wow.
Nice. And then come along a 37 fork
and
a 32 fork. It was awesome morning. As soon as obviously Pete had his bag and I had my bag, sort of the pressure just come off everyone.
Yeah.
We weren't even thinking about finishing in first place. It was just like, well, good, we've got solid bags. We're happy. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
We're talking. Yeah, so I had a change to an AU crab.
Okay.
Instead of the olive green. And, yeah, that was getting him. Pete was using his live scope. He could see the fish ahead of him.
Yeah.
Which actually played in my hands because Pete was chucking straight ahead, casting straight ahead of the boat. And that gave me a bit of an angle to cast up a bit further than I would have normally as a non-boater.
Sure.
And then it come back and was coming, my crab was landing right at the bottom of the back of the boat.
Okay. So fishable.
Yeah, fishable where sometimes as a non-boater, if the boat is fishing straight out, you don't have much pace to cast. And, you sort of miss that white area. So, yeah.
Was that sort of the same sort of pattern? You're fishing rock walls or fishing deep drop-offs or?
Yeah, upriver as well. Yeah, so, Pete, very similar areas. The water was a lot dirtier this day too.
Mm-hmm.
Pete said it was a bit slower to get his fish. He reckons he had his fish quite early on day one. And I thought, well, 9 o'clock's pretty good.
Yeah.
Day two, so you'd have to be happy with that, but it was good. So
yeah, especially like if you've got your bag at 9:30, you've probably got a 40-minute run upriver or a 30-minute run anyway. So it's not too bad.
We stayed up there. We stayed right there until the whole tide stopped. That makes sense. So we really stayed and stayed and stayed. And Pete said, yesterday I left too early. And he said, today I want to stay and stay and stay. Well, anyway, it stopped and then the bite stopped and everything. And we come back up towards the mouth of the river and fished a rock edge or a bit of sand and rock edge up in the front, and basically the fish that were there, we could not stop.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Pete, I think straightened hooks on the crab on the first one. I decided to change up to a brown surgy chubby and cast in and just got nailed as well. It was just, we went through, I think, 3 or 4 crabs that like Pete and myself were just going through them. We just couldn't pull them up.
Yeah, wow.
And then the fish must have got a bit smaller and we had double hookups, but they were around 31 fork and then we weren't getting any upgrades.
Yeah. Good fish.
But it was awesome fun. We were just having so much fun and we ended up coming back early. So I think we had a 2:15 check-in and we were back 1:45 or something.
Yeah, right.
We just took our time and
Yeah, wow. Nice relaxed approach.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so if you're down the front there and you couldn't stop them, obviously there's some decent fish there. It was a good place to go to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, mate, I reckon that's a pretty good rundown. So from what I can gather, most of your fish were caught upriver. Most of the fish you caught were upriver doing the similar thing, sort of bouncing it down the rock walls.
Yeah, and that was. It was both guys were really easy to fish with. Christian, I've known a long time. I think we took him to the Gold Coast back in 2016 or something when he was about 16 or 15 years age, when he first started doing them as a non-boater.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so to catch up with him after a long time. So.
Absolutely. But look, one more thing before we move off the fishing. What sort of lines and leaders were you running for the comp?
Yeah, so I fished really heavy leader, Yamatoyo Harris fighter, fluorocarbon 10 pounds.
Okay.
So that's all I had tied on all weekend. I was going down there thinking the water was going to be super dirty because it had rained so much. And it wasn't as dirty as I thought it was. It was a bit greenish more than anything. I probably didn't get the bites that some of the other guys got, but I was getting quality fish with that. Yamatoyo PE resin cellar braid, 11 pound.
Okay.
Been using that for a long time and it never lets me down. So pretty happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And are you with your braid deleter, you FG knots?
No, just the uni knot or whatever it's called.
A double uni.
Yeah, I'm old school with that. I haven't got the patience to sit there and learn.
Fair enough.
FGs. Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, it's still, like I said in the intro, like you won by a fair margin here, especially from 10th to 1st, and you didn't just squeak in, you smashed it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it worked. So, yeah.
Very good. All right, mate. Look, a couple of things before we shoot off. What did you get to take home for first place?
Yeah, it was obviously a trophy and the first place badge and the Daiwa pack. And I had a look through the Daiwa pack, and it's pretty awesome, I'd use everything that's in that pack, and it was probably worth around $800 from what I can gather. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, so really, really, really decent win. Last thing, mate, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, I've got a few people that probably should thank, and because over the years, obviously, we've had a few people support us, me and my son, doing comps, whether it's team events or boating or non-boating. And so New Look Floors, Wayne from New Look Floors, he helped us out a fair bit with the boats, last couple of boats we've had, wrapping them and supporting us. Spotters have supported us for 7 years or something, I think, now.
Yeah.
Tony from JML Trading, Eco Gear and that, he's been there for a long time now. Spider Sports did our clothing. We had Lawrence for a while as well, but now we've got no boats. So still like to thank them because they do a lot in the tournament scene. So obviously the guys that travel with Tim Bruce, Paul Langley and Rob Allington, and this year we had Nathan Booth come along, which I hadn't met before. So we all came together on a couple of sites. Yeah. And obviously Steve and Nicole, they do a lot for us in regards to running these comps. And as I said to Steve, like, comps are coming and going, but ABT seemed to be the one that sticks around.
Yeah.
Which gives you consistency, and thanks to them as well. That's about it.
Very good, mate. That's a great wrap up. All right. Well, look, thanks for that. Now that you're back in the non-boating, hopefully we get to have a chat to you again.
Yeah. No, it was quite relaxing, as I said to you off air. It was the most relaxing weekend I've had for a long time doing bream tournaments. So, not having to worry about boats and that, and just being able to sit back, have a beer while everyone else rushes around, was quite good.
Sounds like a good plan. All right, mate. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, so up next in third place in the boating division, we have an angler dropping 5 fish for 4.99 kilos on the Saturday, backing it up on the Sunday with 5 fish for 3.380 kilos on the Sunday, which gave him a total bag of 8.37 and third place. I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project, Mark Healey. Welcome back, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me back on.
No worries, mate. No worries. Another good event for you. You've had a run of wins, but third place in the Hawkesbury is still pretty good.
Mate, I would take that any day of the week, to be fair. And I have had a good run, but like ABT events, top 5, you'd never say no. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And like we said, and we'll get into this in the back end of this interview, you're a relatively small upgrade from the front anyway.
Yeah, I found it pretty tough on the second day. And to be honest, I probably got fairly lucky on the first day. So all in all, I'm really, really happy with that result. Certainly didn't expect to do as well as I did in that event coming into it. So yeah, I'll take that.
As you would. And good AOY points too.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. So should keep me up at that pointy end.
Very good. All right, mate. With this one, did you get a chance to get up and have a look around leading into the competition?
Yeah, I went down for a bit of a look around probably 2 or 3 weeks prior to the event. And what I found is it just seemed to be very unseasonably, fishing very unseasonably. And what I mean by that, the water temperature was a lot warmer than it normally is at this time of year. It was sort of like I was getting sort of 23s, 24s and very, very warm. The fish weren't sort of in their normal areas. Well, not what I was finding anyway. It was fairly tough. It did struggle and got a couple of reasonable sized fish, but just wasn't getting the numbers that I would have liked to have seen. So was a little bit unsure. And I guess on pre-fish day, it wasn't too dissimilar. I went and revisited a lot of the places that I tend to like fishing, and it just wasn't happening there. It was pretty quiet. So I was like, fish got to be somewhere. And I thought, maybe there's still a upriver, and went up on pre-fish day and no big fish, but did find numbers right upriver. And that sort of, I guess, locked in my game plan for day one. So, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Let's roll into day one. Yeah, tell us what you did.
Yeah, well, like I was saying to you earlier, I was pretty uncertain after the briefing. I was rigging up that night and I was like, I don't know where I'm going to start. I don't know what I'm going to do. And on the pre-fish day, the only numbers of fish that I found were upriver. And although I didn't get any big fish at all on pre-fish day, I got a 32, and the rest were sort of high 20s. But I was getting numbers of fish upriver. So based on that, I shot upriver and started up there and bounced around a few rock walls and sort of, I guess, slowly put a bag together. And that was the plan. It was to go upriver, really spend 2-3 hours or whatever it took to get a bag, and then come back down to sort of towards the mouth of the system and try and get some of those bigger bites and upgrade the bag. But ultimately, I didn't need to do that. And I managed to get some big bites upriver and got a pretty decent sized bag ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. Like you basically 5 kilos. What were you kind of doing up there? You fishing like rock walls and crankers, or what was your pattern up there?
Yeah, I was just fishing rock walls, just finding the walls with the flow on it, fishing predominantly the crabs. Every now and then I'd sort of get a bit closer and I'd run a couple of hard bodies along the edges, and that did catch a couple of fish. But the majority of the fish came on the crabs, and just working them off the rocks and just being patient. And yeah, just sort of waiting for a bite every 20 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it took, and just hoping it was a good bite. So,
yeah. If you're working the crabs down the crank walls, were you looking for like that really deep structure, or were they kind of hitting as it was coming down the wall?
Yeah, I did find that most of the fish sort of were sitting wider off the walls on both days. When that tide sort of slowed up, they were a little bit sort of not stopped, but just slowed up. It was a little bit easier to fish and just stay in contact with that deeper structure. And that's where I found sort of the better fish did come in that deeper range. Although we did catch fish hard up on the edges, so a lot of the fish came out wider too, especially as that tide slowed up.
Yeah, okay. And like you've obviously fished the event quite a lot. Is it quite common to find them wide off the walls there, or is that something that was a bit different this year?
Yeah, listen, to be honest, I don't normally fish right up river like I did this year. And I guess I only did it because I couldn't find any sort of solid or numbers of fish down the front. So that sort of forced my hand to go up river. And so I haven't really fished up there, although I've been up there on the odd occasion. Like I haven't really sort of focused up there in years past. And so it was a bit of a learning curve for me this year, which was really good because I haven't spent a lot of time up there. So it was kind of like all new to me and figuring it out as I was going, which was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, very good. Very good. And while you were fishing those sort of locations, what sort of lines and leaders are you running?
Yeah, so I was just running 6 pound creeky. And that's what I run on all my reels. They're all the same. It's all 6 pound creek 8 plus. I was fishing 6 pound leader up there, and listen, probably could have fished a little bit heavier, to be honest. Like there's some pretty nasty terrain up there. And I did lose a few crabs along the way, but I just fished 6 pound Ossia leader. And that was, when I hooked a fish, it was more than enough to get him out of the structure. So it was only really a problem when you were, I guess, in that current you were sort of fouling up on that sort of really jagged reef.
Yeah. I guess it's a bit different to maybe years gone by where you're trying to pull fish out of the washes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So it was like it's a bit more of a finesse approach, I guess, the way I was fishing up there. But like sometimes they were just rattling it, and other times they'd just be all over it. They'd just smash it. So I think it just depended on where you were with the tide and the phase as to how the fish were reacting and biting. So it was did get a little bit tentative at times. It tend to get a better bite when it runs harder, but it's harder to fish and it's harder to stay in contact with the bottom. So it's all a bit of a trade-off sometimes.
Definitely. All right. Well, either way, mate, you ended up with a great bag on the Saturday, 4.99, which I think had you firmly in first place. Was that correct?
Yeah, I was in first place overnight, which is, I'd prefer to be a close second, to be honest, but
yeah,
you got to take that. That's for sure.
100%. You got to take any lead you can get.
Yeah, every gram counts in these comps, I've learnt. So if you don't leave anything out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, day 2. So obviously day 2 was just a little bit tougher. Tell us how it went for you.
Yeah, I mean, I went obviously doing so well and unexpectedly, but I did so well on the first day, and I had really no other choice but to try and repeat that pattern, and went upriver and pulled up to where I sort of found the better fish on a particular wall upriver on the first day. And yeah, it's sort of, I guess, I don't know if the tide was a little bit earlier and it just sort of was set up a little bit differently, but it didn't have that sort of back eddy and that current hitting on that edge that I'd fished and found fish on the first day. So the fish weren't holding there. And like you could see on the first day, you could see them on live, you could see them on forward-facing sonar, that there was plenty of fish in that area, but on the second day it was noticeably less. As soon as I had a bit of a scout around, I was like, yeah, okay, this is not. Well, I know, and I didn't know at that stage whether they would come on a little bit more, but there certainly wasn't as many fish in that area that I could see on the second day as I could the first day. But yeah, ultimately, I think a lot of those better fish had moved down the wall to where Pete was fishing. Unfortunately, he was right on them, so he turned up and started smacking them straight away. And I was like, yeah, no, they've moved down the wall about 50, 60, 70 metres, and he was all over him. That was for sure.
He certainly was.
Yeah.
And look, the tides for the Sunday was around about 8 o'clock low, but how much later did it turn up there?
Yeah, it was really funny. Like, I expected, like, it was about an hour's different, I think, off memory. And so I expected sort of, say we had 2 hours of flow on the first day, and I can't remember exactly, but I expected like a solid 3 hours on the second day. And it was really weird. The tide almost changed the same time on the second day as it did the first day, which kind of threw me off because I expected another hour of flow, and then all of a sudden it really slowed up quite abruptly. And I only had 2 fish. And I was like, this is not supposed to be happening like this. I'm supposed to be getting not necessarily the caliber of fish I got the first day, but I was like, I'm supposed to be catching fish for 3 hours here. What's going on? So that sort of shook me a bit, and I made a decision to try a few different areas up there, and to no avail. And yeah, ultimately I had to cut away sort of about mid-session, and with only 2 fish in my bag, which was, a little bit of a nightmare considering I had obviously that good lead overnight and I wanted to at least come in with a bag on the second day. So pretty much spent the next 3 or 4 hours just driving around, just trying to fill my bag, which I ultimately did, but probably just didn't get the overall size in there on the second day that I was hoping. Although I did have a couple of good fish that I only catching the 5 legals on the second day hurt me, and I had a couple of smaller ones there, and I think I was probably a good upgrade. One decent upgrade off probably getting the win really. So
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things. Yeah, you said you had like couple of 25 forkers or thereabouts.
Yeah, so I think I had on second day off memory, I think I had a 36 and a half, a 35 and a half, a 33 and 225. So it's like a reasonable average, but like you throw a 25 out and a 30 in there and makes all the difference. But hindsight, a large part of that latter session is I honestly didn't think I was going to get a bag. So, I'm certainly not going to sit here and complain or say what could have been. I was very happy that I did get a bag and ultimately very happy with my result overall.
Yeah, no, third place is great. And you only got sort of 5 or 6 fish or whatever it was. Were they all cranker crabs at the end of the day, or?
No, I think it was about half and half, and on the second day, and probably a few more on the crabs on the first day when the walls up river was working a bit better. But yeah, it was sort of a bit of a mix. I'd sort of fish crabs, then I'd move in a little bit tighter and maybe just throw a few hard bodies around, and then move back and then just fish crabs a little bit more, and just I didn't really fish lots and lots of areas. I just fished a couple of select areas, but wanted to fish them really thoroughly because I knew I didn't need lots of fish. I just knew I needed a couple of big bites, and I didn't want to sort of try and run and gun and try and fish. I have fallen into that, and I think it's very easy to fall into that trick when you're struggling and you only need 1, 2 or 3 more fish, whatever it might be. You tend to fish a lot faster, and I was very mindful of that, of not fishing too quick and just slowing down and just having some confidence that eventually a bite would come. So,
yeah. And throughout, like you fished a couple of days up there, how much did the actual rate of flow of the current affect it? Like, were you looking for high flow, or did it happen as the current sort of backed off, or what that looked like?
Yeah, so I guess I was just looking for flow upriver. I was looking for flow, pressure points, back eddies, like any sign of current line, bait schools. There was prawn skipping. There was a fair bit of activity when it was flowing well. And I think that's when the fish bit. And I think, like the saying goes, no flow, no go. And I think that's certainly a rule for up that top end of that system. And a lot of river systems, you just need that flow, whether it's running in or running out. You just need that flow to trigger those bites.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. I reckon that's a pretty good rundown of things. We covered your lines and leaders. What sort of rods and reels were you running?
Yeah, I was just running the Zodius rods, 7 foot. I was running the 270L and 270UL. I was just running the compact 2000 Stratix, again with the 6 pound Creaky Plus and 6 pound leader. So I was fishing with the crankbaits, I was fishing the UL, just a little bit of softer rod, a little bit of a slower sort of taper. And then with the crabs, I was fishing the sort of the heavier light version. So just a little bit more pulling power in around those rocks.
Sounds fantastic. Mate, for third place, what did you get to take home?
I think I got a badge. I got some cash. I can't remember how much, but I think it almost covered the fuel for the 3 days running up to Spencer and back. So, yeah, listen, I was pretty happy with that result, to be honest. And like I said, I didn't expect to do all that well in that event. And I really did struggle last year. Last year, I didn't even manage to get my 5 fish on the second day, which was pretty disappointing. And so, in hindsight, I was pretty happy with this result overall this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. All right, mate, last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, just my sponsors, I guess, like obviously Shimano, Cranker, they're amazing. On the Chew, Hot Tackle, Lowrance and Mako Eyewear. So those guys sort of have supported me for a long time now, and it just makes fishing these events that much easier when you've got good people and good companies backing you. So
absolutely. All right, mate. Well, look, thanks for coming on again. Yeah, continuing with the good form. I'm sure we'll get to have a chance to have a talk again soon.
Let's hope so, eh?
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Andrew. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so up next in the boating division, I have an angler dropping a bag of 5 fish for 4.475 on the Saturday, backing it up on the Sunday with 5 fish for 4.035, giving him 10 fish for 8.510. And second place, I have Mark Crompton. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Yeah, cheers, mate. How you going?
That's good, mate. It's good. Good to see you back on so soon.
Yeah, we've had a few top tens. I think I've only fished one event this year where I haven't top 10. So I think one. So.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And, mate, in the results there, mate, you're just a small upgrade off it.
Mate, it was day one that killed me. Day one killed me, big time.
Right. Is that because you dropped a few? Is that what you're saying?
I got wiped out, yeah, quite a few times. I fished Cowan early in the morning on day one. Yeah, mate, I probably dropped a bag of 5 kilo before 8 o'clock, I reckon.
Wow.
So, yeah, I thought that was my day over, to be brutally honest. Once that had happened, hard to recover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up with a good bag, realistically overall. So.
Yeah, it was a good bag. Yeah, but yeah, sometimes it's those ones that you drop that hurt you.
Yeah. Same with the Oz Open. This you guys will see from the shorts. Morgo made a very good mention of messaging me and saying, "Mate, I'm getting sick of watching all these drop fish. I need to make a short just of your drop fish." And then proceeded to coach me with what I should be using and this, that, the other. Yeah. So, yeah. And I'll take that lesson too.
Yeah. All right, mate. So, listen, do you have a chance to get a pre-fish in? Do you get up there and have a look around?
I did, yeah. I sort of snuck about mainly to a brand new engine on the boat, mainly to give you a bit of running time. So that was more what it was about. Have a bit of a drive around and suss some bits and pieces out, drive up river, check out the water clarity. Everyone's carrying on about the rain and this and that. I didn't see it.
Yeah, right.
We didn't have the rain. I live at the top of the Hawkesbury. Well, it's not the top of the Hawkesbury. I live at the top of the Nepean. And when we get rain here, because there's so much construction up here, that brown water flows down.
Right.
When you start to see that down there, that means we've had a lot of rain. And you didn't see that. We still had green water. As soon as I drove upriver and saw the green water, my game plan was definitely upriver. Yeah, we've had good salinity levels, hence why all the pros were spewing about not being able to net the prawns this year, or too many jelly blubbers. Jelly blubbers love the salt water, and that, mate, you just join the dots, right? Like, they can't net up there. There's so much more prawn action. The fish are up there, right? Like, they're just hanging. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for me. Just try and hang up river and have a look round up there.
That's a really cool observation. That's never crossed my mind. So I think we spoke from down at St. George's Basin. The jellies down there were so thick you couldn't, you walk on them. Yeah,
look, and I mean, that event, I sort of took the punt to fish down towards the front reaches, knowing that we catch good fish down the front when the prawns are about. Yeah, I probably learnt from that a little bit to hang further upriver. And I rolled that over into the Oz Open, and you'll see from the shorts, the fish were up there, but I just couldn't get them. So,
oh, mate, I got to tell you, I can't wait for that. It's good seeing people catch fish and big fish, but it's kind of better seeing them drop them.
It truly is. It's like the old going to the speedway and not seeing a smash, right?
That's right. That's right. You got to see one. Yeah,
it breaks your heart, but at the same time, you're right. That's what the spectators want to see, and there's definitely. I think one year I had Michael Salmon on the boat, and he filmed like 100 and something drop fish for me on one day, and put a compilation together. And he said, "Do I share it with you or not?" And I just said, "Go away."
I was going to say, I think Michael needs to reach out to me and let me know all about that video.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share it. Just, like, this time of year for me has always been a hard time of year to take a step back and go to lighter line, go to lighter rods, go to lighter connection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always a very hard fisherman, hard on my gear, hard on my. If I hook a fish, I'm ramming it home, mate. And if I haven't rammed it into it, the fish isn't big enough. That's the way I see it. So,
okay.
Suppose we better talk about this event, though, right?
We better. Yeah, I got sidetracked. I'm like, I want to see all those lost fish. All right. Talk to us about the Saturday. How'd that play out for you? Because you obviously, from what you just said, you had the chances. How'd it start?
Yeah, early on, I ran up Cowan. We've still got fish up there, fishing off, like hanging off the surface due to the awesome cicada season that we had this year. They're still looking up. And I went in there and I was fishing for those fish, and I found them. It wasn't difficult to sort of locate them. All bent minnows predominantly. I got wasted a couple of times. One good fish on a crab. I choose to believe that fish was actually a groper. It wrapped me around something, and
definitely.
My heart's telling me it was a groper. My mind's telling me I'm wrong. But yeah, the rest of them were all on bent minnows, mate. Just crunching them in as close as you can, and letting the fish do everything else. But yeah, got railed. Probably lost three sort of bent minnows or so, and a couple of really good fish whaled me, and got, I think, probably one of my better fish out of there in the morning. I had a bag by the time I'd left there at about 9, 10 o'clock, and then ran up river. I tried to do the opposite to everybody else. So I like to fish the start of the run-in tide up the river when you can. I love fishing the end of the run out, don't get me wrong, but knowing the anglers in the event, knowing what the common sense thing to do is to race up river, try and fish the end of that run out tide. I don't like lining up. I don't like hanging out with other people. I like to go and do my own thing. So I thought, bugger it, I'm going to go and fish Cowan. No, not too many people would go and do that, and fish the lower end of the run out tide up Cowan, just getting those fish that are just pulling off the rocks but still want a little bit of a feed.
Yeah.
And thought, I'll leave everyone to their devices, push and pull upriver, fight and fuss over it, and then I'll go and pick up the scraps later on. So once the tide had changed, everybody nicked off. I went upriver. I was one of the only boats up there, and I just went through and just did my milk run. I didn't have any competition up there. It was, everyone had gone.
Okay. If we jump back into Cowan, I'm curious to know what sort of bite it was. Like, were you having to really work the bent minnows hard, or was it a lot of long pauses, or what was that looking like?
It sort of depends how close you get it to the rocks. If you're right, but you can't get it too close to the rocks because the oysters are already starting to show. So a lot of the fish were hanging off the rocks 2 metres or so. So it didn't really matter. You're just ripping it down there and sort of... I'm pretty fast, man, when I fish, I guess. I don't fish with too many other people right now. I fish in teams events with Rossi and Shauno, obviously, but I'm bad at taking over and I just race through and I don't pay attention to what other people are sort of doing. So I don't know if I'm fast at it or if I'm slow at it. I guess I'm reasonably quick. I don't leave much behind for my non-boaters, unfortunately, but I push through those edges pretty quick and methodically. So, and I'm impatient. So I guess I do fish it pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay. And you said in the start of the interview that you've kind of gone back to lighter lines and connection points. Where are you at the moment in terms of fishing bent minnows?
Oh, not in the Hawkesbury. No, I was running like 10, 12 pound in there. That was what sort of got me, I guess, rolling into Sydney Harbour. You're rolling them back to 3 pound, 2 pound, 4 pound straight throughs and things like that, running boat holes and even the fishing that I'd done down the basin. It was heavier line than was required in Sydney Harbour. So to fish Sydney Harbour on light line for me is hard because I'm so used to going heavy in there. So
yeah. So you nick off upriver. You've got a fair bit of water to yourself. How'd that play out for you?
Well, day one, I just sort of picked apart every area and I got a couple of my standard spots and a couple other spots that I know had previously gone well in events. I'd done previously well in events up there. And, yeah, you just have a milk run of areas, mate. Just, individual zones. I just chomped through them and just picked up a fish here, a fish there, a fish here, a fish there, and just trusted in my process. Justin will laugh at that. Justin, my non-boater, he weighed a good bag on day one, and I'd said to him, mate, he didn't have a fish until about probably 12.
Right.
Just trust in my process, mate. It'll work. Anyway, by the end of the day, he's laughing. Justin Eagles, he was like, trust in the process. So it rang true. And, day two shone for that even more. So early morning on day two, I raced back up Cowan to see if I could catch a couple of those better fish. Found a couple, 2 or 3, but I just cooked them, missed those bites. Left Cowan by about probably 9, quarter to 10. Might have got a little bit antsy. I was like, well, maybe I can get a little bit of that end of the run outside in a few spots. I didn't see anyone fish. And thought to myself, I'll race up river now. I only had 2 fish. Well, they were the only 2 fish I had until about 1:30, somewhere there.
Ouch.
But knowing that run out tide was going to come later, I had a 2:30 finish or 2:20 finish, so a later finish. I just sat there, mate, in a couple of particular spots and honed right in onto my active target. So fishing 10 to 15 metres of water, picked 3 main boulders that I like to fish, and just sat there and made angled casts until I got to the 10 metres deep on a boulder that's about the size of a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do, mate. It's not easy, especially when the current's just starting to flow. But running a 65 mil crab, you can see it like it looks like a golf ball on the active target. You can see it.
Okay.
So full cast, you can see it splash on the water. Just picked apart those areas and managed to scrape together another good bag on. I ended up getting 7 or 8 fish up there and in about a half an hour period, and that was my bag, mate. That was second place.
Okay. If we can, let's talk about your active target. Have you got that on your trolling motor?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in heavy current and trying to fish a boulder, yet also trying to use the active target, how do you manage that?
Mate, I don't like the poles. I can't stand those poles. I've had them before. Trying to control a pole, you kind of can't sit on spot lock.
Yeah.
You get your cast out. Your cast might not be spot on. There might be a little bit of push current pulling your lure a little bit further to the left, so you've got to shift. You can't just sit in the one spot on spot lock. It doesn't work that way. And there's nothing worse than to having to control 2 things with your feet, as well as watch the sounder, as well as watch what the current's actually doing in front of you and everything else that's going on. I find I can just control the whole lot with my tippy toes, and it's a far better, easier process. The other thing is too, you've got to fan side to side and side to side when you're actually watching your lure drop. You can't just watch in the one beam, I find anyway. And I'll sort of pan side to side with the forward vision.
Yeah.
To see if there's any fish coming in on that lure as well. You can see your lure, but if you look to the left or the right a little bit, then you can see the fish coming into that lure as well. So you know to preempt the bite. That's probably the main aspect with it. I had my scout mode tilted down pretty deep as well, so I could see those rocks on the scout mode in 10, 12 metres of water. So I could watch it both ways. Yeah, mate, I'd challenge anybody to have a better setup than I've got on the boat at the moment. Everything is just peaking and I can see everything so crystal clear. It made a massive difference in getting my bag.
Have you got 2 transducers on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was trying to...
Yeah. Two transducers, 2 16s up the front, and 1 transducer on forward, 1 on scout.
On scout. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, there you go. So I guess with the scout, like you said, you've got that wider field of vision, so you would be able to see your lure, which was one of the reasons I asked the question, how you seeing your lure. But that's probably how.
Well, it's not actually on scout that you're seeing the lure drop on the forward. I normally have it set on about 25 metres.
Yep.
I had it set on 30, and I was casting. I can generally get a full cast with a 65mm crab about 26, 27 metres.
Okay.
You see it land.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. I mean, it's angles, right? My job is plumbing. I see angles. I see that all the time. A line in line with my sounder, I can line that up with an eyesight, and I can get a good cast straight in line with where my transducer is shot. And I can watch that lure hit the water and drop down and follow it all the way down. When the current's not ripping in, run-in tide in the Hawkesbury is not a run-out tide. A run-out tide pumps. A run-in tide is nice and subtle. So
okay.
That's why I prefer to fish the run-in tide compared to the run-out. I control it better. That's what I find. So.
Yeah. Look, the reason I asked, I've got the Active Target 2 on the kayak, but I find it's great and I love it. There's no complaints with that. But there's so much movement in the kayak itself, I really struggle to keep it. So you're trying to do, like you said, 3 things. You're pedaling to keep in line. You're turning the handle. You're watching you got a lot of things going on.
Mate, to do my head in a kayak, I take my hat off to you. Kayak would be 1,000 times harder than what I'm doing in the boat.
Yeah.
It's the easier factor with the boat is you can shift around a fair bit more, but I don't envy you in a kayak. That'd be difficult.
And you said you don't like the poles, which is great, but have you tried like an electric pole as well, like 2 poles?
Yeah, I got one of the first ones originally when some crappy company in America when they very first sort of released one that had a foot pedal and remote control and all that. I got that straight away. I thought, this is going to be great. And it was a piece of crap.
Okay.
Any of it, more goes the same. We don't find that fishing in current and structure, poles, boats, pontoons, you can't, mate. It's a waste of time having it on a pole. You just got another thing to control.
Yeah, it's too much.
You don't need to do that with it on your trolling motor. And you see the guys in the States too, mate. 90% of them are not running a separate system. They're running it off their trolling motor.
Yeah.
It's just easier to be able to fan around, power on, power off, power on, power off, fan. That's easier process, all done with your left foot.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Although the story's kind of short and sweet, it does cover, you basically got your fish on the big crabs on day 2 in the back end of the day, and 10 to 12 pound leader.
Upriver, no. Upriver, I don't like that heavier line. I like to go as light as I can because you're in the current.
Yeah.
If you've got too much current, the line just drags and your lure moves around too much with the current.
Yeah.
The thinner the line you can go, the better. You're straight up and down on the fish, so you're not as worried about doing it. There's no oysters down there.
Yeah.
Oysters are up high, so you're not as worried about them doing you on that sort of stuff. So I'll go down to 5 or 6 for that sort of thing, but it's when you're in amongst the sharp stuff, you go in the heavier gear.
Yeah, fair enough. One last thing, I'm just going to double back to the Active Target. Were you able to see the fish actually come in and take the lure? Can you watch that take more or less?
Oh, yeah. Bloody oath. 100%.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah, most definitely, mate. That's, and I was only fishing for big fish. I was only fishing for bigger fish. And when you can see them down there, there's no mistaking them. They're down there,
Yeah.
It's not difficult. I actually found, compared to Sydney Harbour, probably getting better visuals the deeper I am. If I'm sitting at that 10 metres, 8 metres of water, I'm getting better visuals than fishing the shallower sort of 2 metres of water. If you're fishing that 2 metres and under, it's definitely harder. Don't get as good a picture.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. All right, very cool, mate. Well, listen, it was enough to bring you back with just over 4 kilos. You ended up with 8.5, so just a little bit behind Pete. Second place. What did you get to take home?
$1,700. The check's right there.
Beautiful.
And the Mercury bonus, which I'm owed a few of them. So.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right. Morgo did mention that you're pretty keen on the Mercury Cup this year.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that bloody thing. Yeah. I've been pipped at the post a few times with that because I've borrowed boats in WA that haven't had Mercs. Well, this time I've got one over there. So, we'll be right.
Very good, very good. All right, mate. Well, last thing before we shoot off. First of all, good luck in West Oz. You're doing that the weekend after we record this. And, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, obviously my wife, Danny, she held down the fort. We were moving house, in the process of moving house. Most of the bulky stuff had been done, but she was left with the tidying, the cleaning, the looking after the 5-year-old, and did a miraculous job of getting it all across the line. I was peaking a bit during the Open. I was peaking a bit during the Hawkesbury, just due to the fact that everything was settling, and there's normally something that'll pop up on the settlement hour or something. It was just all seamless. So that was all due and thanks to her. She's the miracle worker behind the scenes. So massive thanks to her. And my standard sponsors, Lawrence, Daiwa, these guys have always been with me. They're phenomenal. The support's great. Lawrence have stepped up their support. Their products are proving themselves time and time again now. My power pole gear, the guys at Power Pole have obviously got onto a winner with all their products. They're awesome support. And again, Adam at fishing.com always helps me if I'm short, and little notice to him that he can normally get me whatever I need. Massive thanks to Adam. But yeah, Rise Above Plumbing, that's my main sponsor. They're the ones that allow me to go, give me the time off, and help support our tournaments as well. They support the Fishing Monthly setup and the ABT. They do good things for our community now, which is a good way to be able to share back and also stay ahead of the outgoings that go on with owning a small business. It's good to be able to get the coverage through fishing, to be able to get some work out of fishing. It's a really good thing. We've got some great customers out of the fishing circles now, and we thank the guys. It's good to do full circle.
Okay, so just to dive into that just a little bit more. So if somebody wanted to use the Rise Above Plumbing services, what sort of work would they have and where would they contact?
So we're doing a lot of low-pressure sewer systems around the Wallandilly, the Shoalhaven, the Hawkesbury. We supply 24-hour breakdown service as well as ongoing maintenance and support for low-pressure sewer systems. We've got a great plethora of knowledge with the products, all different products, and we can help guide customers through whichever system they choose, be it private or Sydney Water owned. So it's a really good system that moving forward in the new development zones, it's becoming the thing of the future. We like to be able to help people make the right decisions when they're getting one in a new property.
And contact?
0418 649 160. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We don't have a website. We don't waste our time with that crap these days. And it's all very organic, how we advertise and how we get our work. It's a lot of word of mouth, and it's just telling the honest truth. And hopefully that reflects back in the customers that we get from word of mouth and from our social media and covering things like the ABT, helping get our name out there through the fishing circles. A lot of people fish, mate. So used to be footy and soccer, and you'd sponsor the local teams. Well, I can tell you right now, we're getting some good coverage out of the fishing.
Fair enough, mate. And if they contact you and say Deethy sent you, you get your plumbing fixed and you get a free crank of crab.
Yeah, no worries. I've got a lot of customers that are always, what do you got any rods that you're rolling over or stuff? Oh, yeah, we can work something out. Yeah, for sure.
All right, mate. Awesome. Well, look, good luck in West Oz. And, mate, thanks for coming on again. And I will talk to you next time.
Yeah, cheers, Deethy. Talk soon, mate.
Thanks, mate. Okay, and finally in first place, we have an angler dropping 5 fish for 3.475, backing it up on the Sunday with a big bag of 5.115, giving him 10 fish and 8.59 kilos. And his first win, we've got Peter Breukel. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Yeah, how are you, Andrew?
Mate, I'm not as good as you, mate.
Nah, a bit stoked. Sounds like it's knocked out then.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Mate, how long have you been fishing the comps?
I don't know. I think this is my 4th year in the boat. Yeah.
Yeah, so not like a fair time, but not crazy long time.
Nah, not crazy long time. I was a workaholic when I was younger. I didn't have time to go fishing. I did go fishing, but not like I wanted to.
Fair enough. Well, mate, you've done it. Let's go around. So with this one, did you get a chance to get up there on the Friday and have a bit of a look around?
Yeah, we did, yep. Yeah, out in the water and just scooted up river. I thought I'd go and check that out first, up past Spencer and that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then went on, this is pretty good, and then went down the front on the washers on the way home.
Yeah.
And that was good, but pretty hard getting them out of there.
Right.
And then I went down to Cottage Point and had a look at that on the boat hulls and that there. And yeah, I thought, this is going to be good.
Okay. And you said that just before overall, you had a pretty decent bag for the pre-fish.
Yeah, huge bag. Don't want to tell you that.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm good at being the pre-fish princess at the moment. I'm trying to get that off my back.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Well, unfortunately, yeah, maybe you got it.
Yeah, it's happened again. That's right.
Well, did you get a badge?
Nah, thank God.
Fair enough.
Probably will now.
You probably will now.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, tell us. So you had a good pre-fish. Tell us about how your Saturday was. How'd you go about catching some fish?
Well, Saturday, I thought it started really well. I think my non-boater said it was 8:45 and I had me 5. So I'm like, well, that's good. Monkey's off me back. I'll just nail down and then my non-boater went clunk, kilo fish, clunk, kilo fish, clunk, kilo fish. And I'm like, oh, man. And then drifted back a bit to try and get him out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got I just couldn't get that kicker, them couple of kicker fish.
Yeah.
And then we went down the front and tried down the front, just small, 32. And I'm like, it was all over. And I went back sort of a bit disappointed, but still happy. 3.5. I thought, I can still be in it with that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a win involved in this, but I just thought I want AOY points because it's a home grand final. So
yeah,
I just went, right, we'll just grind it out tomorrow. If we have a day like pre-fish, I'll be right up there.
Yeah, right. So tell us, you said in your pre-fish you went to sort of 3 different locations. Where'd you end up on comp day? Did you shoot back up the river? Yeah,
first up. We chased it because we had the outgoing tide, so I wanted to fish that. So we bolted up. Gee, it's a fair way past Spencer. And, we fished that. And then, that was awesome. And, it was going. Got a couple of clunking fish. And then I think it was about 11 o'clock or 10:30. The tide was just starting to drop out.
Mm.
Yeah, threw the crab in one more time and bang, got that 39 forker. So I'm like, there's my kicker fish.
Yeah.
And all the rest of them are about 1 kilo. So,
yeah, right.
So, some of them might have been just under 1 kilo because that one 1.29, I think it was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that we're talking about the Saturday, aren't we?
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you meant the Sunday. Sorry.
No. Sorry. So with the Saturday, I was just trying to work out whether you went up river.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we went up river to all my spots where I caught one here, one there, and it was the same. I was catching one here, one there, but yeah, they were hitting just them 32 forker sort of size.
Yeah, so
I
good
couldn't
fish.
couldn't get past them.
Yeah, right. So good
Just
fish.
needed a couple of 35s, 36s to be up there, with Healey and that, with to get a 4 kilo bag.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And did you fish most of the time with crabs, or what else were you throwing?
Just crabs and sprats and occasionally through the grub, the Z-Man grub.
Yeah, right. And with the sprats, how'd you go upriver with them? Did you find you were getting them?
Yeah, but they were small. I got all my bigger fish on the cranky crab, so that's where all my big ones come on. And once you start catching them on that, it's pretty hard to put it down.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Did you find, were you sort of fishing rocky edges and fishing the deep boulders? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're just looking for the boulders that were coming out, because they weren't on the edge.
Yeah.
So we were just looking, and I was just on the live scope. And then I was just working my way up the rock wall, and then I could see them. Oh, look at them all on the big rock there, probably about, 20, 30 feet out from the edge in about 30 foot of water.
Okay.
So then I just cast forward as far as I can, watch not that far, but just casting a fair way in front of me, and then just catching. And just as it nearly got to the bottom, you could see the crab coming into the forward down. And then you could see it land on the bottom, and then I'm like, oh, well, I've got to drag it towards me, and then you could see the fish there and bang it on.
Wow.
And then just keep moving backwards and forwards up the bank, just kept looking for them for behind, because they sit behind the boulders in that tide.
Okay. And with you're on the Garmin, I think, were you in forward or perspective?
Yeah, I've got both of them set up. So I had perspective on, pointing down, but it doesn't really work that well in that deeper water perspective. But the other one's on forward down, and that works really good.
Yeah. It's a different game.
You just got to turn it a lot more. You got to search. It's just, and then try and cast it where your thing's pointing. That takes ages to learn as well.
Yeah, fair enough. What were the current conditions like up there?
Yeah, it was fine.
Fine, okay.
It was fine, yeah, from about 7:30 till 9:30, 9:30. Sort of then it started to drop off, and then by say 11 o'clock, it was just still, and it was get out of here.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Fly down the front and chase the incoming tide.
Yeah, 100%. And on day one, did you put any fish in the boat from down the front, or were they all from upriver?
I think one.
Yeah.
I think I upgraded one of them. Pretty sure I did.
Okay.
Hard to remember, yeah. So I'm pretty sure we upgraded one, but I can't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, cool. Well, look, it was enough to give you 3.475, which wasn't the bag you were chasing, but like you said a bit before, it kind of still left you in the hunt for getting some good AOY points was what was going on.
Yeah, that's right. So I thought, I was a little bit disappointed, but anyway, just move on. Next day. All right. So obviously you had a pretty decent bag on the Sunday. Tell us how you put that together. Yeah, well, on the Sunday, that was we got to start a bit earlier. So we were 11th off the start instead of 28th or something.
Yeah.
So we got a bit more early start and then just pinged it, and I wanted to get to my spot.
Yeah.
Because Healey was in front of me, and then got there and Healey was doing his little corner that he likes, and I just left him alone with that and stitched, just worked on the section that I liked, and and then just clunk, and got me bag in no time, and then upgrade 35, 4, and then I went back in close and then went to the wall, and then I went, I'll just get the boat away from the wall a bit, and I was looking at the forward down and going, oh, look at the fish out there. So I went out to about 40 foot away from the wall, and there was a big rock there, and then I just casted my lure down on that and with the crab, and just lifted it up over the rock and crack 36 fork. I'm like, oh, you rip up.
Nice.
And then, the tide was just about to die, and then bang, at 39. So,
wow.
in non-boater goes, you got over 5 kilos, Breukel. I said, "Oh, you reckon?" So then we checked it and went, "Oh, man, 5-1. Oh, that's all right." So then the tide sort of dropped right out, and I just said to him, I think we've got, look, I've got a good bag. I don't think I can upgrade now that the tide's gone slack. So we just popped in the boat, hooked right back down to the front, which takes you about, I don't know, 30 minutes.
Yep.
So, full noise. Went down to the front and then got in behind the island on the wash there at the mouth.
Yeah.
And first cast just got totally cleaned up on 12-pound.
Oh.
Leader, just totally could not get it out of there.
Yeah, right.
And then me noddies flicked his, I think, a chubby in there. And then he's just like, bang as well. Yes. So then I got a 16-pound. I got the 16-pound out, which I never use. But I know there, I've listened to Chris Hickson and people like that. They say you need one big, heavy rod. When you get that happening, you need a big rod. Yep. So I got one out with 16-pound on it and tied the big crab on it in olive colour.
Mm.
And then piffed it in there, and then I just couldn't stop it.
Right.
Just couldn't stop him. Snapped off again. So in an hour, I think I went through 6 rods.
Wow.
So just getting totally cleaned up.
Yeah, that's
There's no upgrading there, but it was a lot of fun. I had a ball of an afternoon, especially when you got 5 kilos or 5-1 in the well. You're pretty happy anyway. But then that, and I was like trying so hard to get them out. I just couldn't do it. I take the boat out further, cast further, and then on my foot on the electric. And then as soon as I'd hook up, just drive the boat away. But just couldn't, even with a 2,500 reel, it just, with it nearly fully locked up, it just snap.
Wow, with 16-pound. That's crazy.
Yeah. All the boys reckon I don't know what I'm doing.
Well. I was going to say, in this comp, seems like you did.
Yeah, well, I had Rocket. He's done a lot of fishing. He'd come out. He was my non-boater.
Okay.
Rodney O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was my non-boater, and he just goes, "Mate, there's no way you can stop that." He goes, "That rod was just fully bent over." He goes, "I can't believe it." And he snapped off on the chubby, and he had heavy gear on too. And he just goes, "Oh, no way." He goes, "They are massive."
Wow. That's crazy.
Well, you get a glimpse of them, and then they just go straight down and then into that kelp and the rocks, and you're gone.
And it's all over.
Yeah, all over.
Yeah. I'm looking at the angler drawers, and you've got, I think, first place and third place in the non-boaters as well. For your non-boaters. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So my non-boater was, I think he was coming second on day one, and my other nonny was 5th. Rocket was 5th, I think, and then he ended up in first. Yeah, he got some crackers. He clicked on pretty quick what I was doing.
Yeah, right. Well, I haven't spoken to Rodney yet, although in the interviews it'll come up before this one. I haven't spoken to him yet. Very good.
No, he's good.
When you're fishing the washers, just with crabs?
Yeah, crabs, and he was using, it was all I had on the deck, and then we'd sort of only had an hour to go, and I'm just like, I'll just throw these. Just kept throwing them, and then I thought, that rod's gone. And then I went to go and redo we're going to do an FG knot, and then I'm going, there's a 1.5 left on this one. I'll just tie another crab on it.
That's still good.
So yeah, it was a big donation day of cranky crabs.
Wow. Well, there you go.
You reckon you'd pull the hooks before you'd snap 16-pound line, but as soon as it hits that kelp or whatever is down there, it's razor sharp.
Yeah, it's all over.
It's all over.
It's all over.
Even the big one I got up the river, it took ages to get it up.
Yeah.
With 12, that had 8 pound on it, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I was going to say.
Yeah, and then I thought I might have had a chance because I seen Healey and he wasn't going too good, and I'm like, might have a chance here.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions. When did you start to think, when you were in the weigh-in, what was going through your head then in the lineup?
Well, we got there and then I weighed in, And I was pretty confident about what I had. And I went, I should be up in the top 3, I reckon. Cromo will probably have a good day because he was up there. And I just thought, it is what it is. But then, like, Scotty had his accident in the boat. So I was just all hands on deck with that. And then like, we were busy because the Maritime bringing the boat back, and we worried the car keys because the boat was upside down when they towed it in. The car keys were in there. We were worried about the car wouldn't start. So I was busy with all that, and then I'm walking off to go and get the car, and then Mario just comes bolting at me, Mario Bukic.
He
just picks me up. You won. And I was like, you really?
How good is that?
So, yeah, and then I didn't even have time to do the interview more when we get back to the van.
Yeah, okay.
Just dealing with that and the police and all that crap because Scotty had to go to hospital, so.
Yeah.
Just for a red cut. They were all right, but just for them reasons, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not a good thing at all.
Nah. So it sort of took the shine off it for a little bit. It didn't sink in until like for about 10 o'clock. I'm like, I freaking did it. I've done it. And then driving home, I left at 2 a.m. on Monday morning.
Yep.
I was sort of driving back and I'm like, I can't believe it. I've actually got it.
You've got it.
I keep getting in place, but like Mark Healey and that, like they're like gun fishermen and they've been doing it for a long time. Like they're hard to beat him, Cromo, like Mario, Steve himself. Like, you know, and then to be able to sort of mingle with them at the moment is pretty like a good feeling, you know what I'm saying?
100%. If you look at the list there, I'll just read it out to you. So you got Mark Crompton, Mark Healey, Chris Hickson, Steve Morgan, Mario Vukic, Michael Colatouris, Bernard Kong, Hayden Wadsworth, and Grant Oliver rounding out the 10. Mate, some of the names there. Mate,
yeah, that's right.
Big wins. I mean, Colatouris, like, he's been, you know, a big force up there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's renowned for up there. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, just at the right spot, the right time, as you do in these things. You need the stars to align sometimes, but
sometimes got to come together.
Yeah, well, unless you're Mark Healey, he seems to make them always align. So.
I was going to say, he's pretty unstoppable up there.
Take me out up to the man. He's a good fisherman.
He really is.
Starting to get there and get more and more confident. So.
Exactly. Well, mate, you got the win under your belt. So tell us, what do you get to take home for the win?
Oh, no, it's $3,500 or something, I think.
Yep, $3,500.
And the biggest thing is the plaque and the you know, the check, the novelty check and the piece of wood for me. That's the main things I want.
That's it. And now we spoke before we hit record and you're building a new boat shed. Are these things going to take pride and place in there?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah, the one wall hopefully for the boats and one for the Havies.
Very good. Very good. All right, mate. Look, last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, shout out to Hurricane Lures, which is, you know, naughty, and that's been helping me a lot. And Steve from Cranker Crab, like, you know, he helped me out a little bit. There's a bit of stuff, and yeah, and just these, like the Cranker Crab, it's just a rocking thing when you're working how to use it properly. It's a number one lure, I reckon, in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a competition.
So Steve Morgan and Nicole running a great comp, and yeah, and just all the guys that fish in it, like they're all top blokes, and it's so much fun to just even go without winning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Perfect. All right, mate. Well, look, I want to say, first of all, congratulations on the win, and thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, Andrew.
Okay, so there you have it, everybody. Another big episode. This is quite a large one. Last week, we had the guys from the Vic Bream Classics. We've got this one on the Hawkesbury, and next week, we will have the Australian Open, which should be a video episode if all things go well. Either way, there'll definitely be a podcast, and it's definitely worth listening to. Quick shout out to a young fella, and I don't know his name. I can't remember what the handle was. He put a comment up on the monthly report for May. Up in Queensland, 14-year-old. Mate, I'm not sure who you are. Check with your parents, send us a photo and show us some of the fish you've caught. Anyway, look, apart from that, I'm going to wrap this one up quickly. It's another massive episode, and I'll talk to you next week on the Bream Fishing Project. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.